Argument this morning in case number 14556, Obergefell versus Hodges, and the consolidated cases.
And with that, the United States Supreme Court began hearing historic oral arguments which could make same-sex marriage the law of the land. And a Cincinnati man is at the center of the debate. Good evening, everyone. Jim Obergefell wanted to be listed on his husband's death certificate. His fight has now reached the Supreme Court.
The High Court began hearing arguments on two things today: whether same-sex couples have a right under the Constitution to marry, and whether states are required to recognize unions performed in other states. Obergefell and Arthur got married in Maryland, but their union was not recognized in the state of Ohio. Arthur died in 2013.
It was heartbreaking, and for us it was a very easy decision to say, this isn't right, this isn't something we should stand for, and it isn't something anyone else should stand for. So it was a very easy decision for us to stand up and say, we won't take this.
Scott Thuman from our Washington Bureau heard the arguments firsthand and joins us from D.C. Scott?
Yeah, Rob, you touched on a little bit there the two big questions that were being debated. One, of course, can you still have a ban on same-sex marriage in some states? But on top of it, if so, do other states have to recognize gay marriage even if it's not legal in their particular state? This was a rare 2.5-hour session. Typically, we don't see that much time given to attorneys, but everyone here well aware of the significance here and the fact that the Supreme Court could very well be redefining marriage. So as you take a look at some of the video from today and the crowds that were outside, it was quite a scene. And of course, inside where I was, the justices really prodded the lawyers today, pushing them to defend their stances, including that idea that marriage has been one man, one woman for what Justice Kennedy called a millennia plus time. So he asked, who are we, the justices, to know better? Here's what one gay couple said in response to that, and then hear from the opponents.
If I were a lawyer, I would have said, well, it used to take months and months to cross the ocean, and then it took a week to cross the ocean, and in very short order with the jet age, it took 6 hours to cross the ocean. I mean, things come with technology and knowledge and advancement, and I don't see how anything's different on this issue.
I think the three key justices that made comments that you should pay attention to are Justice Kennedy, number one, and he said this is the marriage definition that we've had for millennia. How are we in a position that we can decide better than everybody else in the history of the world?
All right, so a lot of focus on those words today, but as you may know, when you come in here and you listen to these long arguments and proceedings, sometimes it's difficult to kind of parse those words and figure out exactly where the justices may be leaning. People believe this could be very close, although the common thought out here is that it may be a 6-3, 5-4 decision in favor of gay marriage. But once again, it's a difficult room to judge a lot of time because there is this debate. Do we stick to what we believe is constitutional, or do we adapt to what the progression and the momentum seems to dictate? At least in this case, we saw a handful of states just a few years ago who were allowed to have gay marriage. Now you've got 36 plus the District of Columbia, and that is not lost on the 9 justices behind me. A decision likely expected at the end of June. Rob, Cammie?
Scott, tell me, not many people have ever seen the inside of the Supreme Court. Describe what it was like in there for us, if you would, today. Is it contentious? Is it tense? Is it friendly? What's it like?
Yeah, a great question, Rob, and I say that because we saw something that you almost never see here at the Supreme Court. Usually all of the emotion is outside. Today, just about a half hour in after the first attorney presentation today, someone stood up, a demonstrator, and began screaming that gay marriage is an abomination of God. It's a very rare sight to see here before the Supreme Court justices. Bailiffs quickly grabbed him and brought him out, and I'm not exaggerating, for 5 moments afterward we could still hear him screaming in the hallway. So a bit of a scene, one justice joking, a bit refreshing to break it up a little bit.
Scott, thanks very much. We'll have continuing coverage of the same-sex marriage case on the air and on local12.com. Coming up at 6 tonight, meet a local couple so confident the law will change, they are planning their wedding.